The mother who vanished after a drive, the Bonnie Haim mystery. Before we dive in, kindly hit the subscribe button and let us know where you are watching from in the comment. It was a chilly night in Jacksonville, Florida. January 6, 1993, a date that would haunt an entire family for decades. Bonnie Haim had just finished dinner with her husband, Michael, and their 3-year-old son, Aaron. The house was quiet, the kind of quiet that felt unnatural, tense, heavy, and full of unspoken words. Bonnie had that feeling again, that gut-deep unease that told her something was wrong. She'd been living with it for months. Michael's temper had been short lately. The smallest things, burnt toast, a misplaced receipt, would make him snap. And tonight, that anger hung thick in the air. Bonnie tried to keep calm for Aaron's sake. She smiled, cleaned up the dishes, tucked her little boy into bed, and told him she loved him. But deep down, she was scared. She had been making plans to leave. Bonnie had quietly opened her own bank account. She had hidden small amounts of money there, hoping one day to use it to start over. Just her and Aaron, far away from Michael. Friends said she'd been looking for an apartment. Co-workers said she'd cried in the bathroom at work, terrified that her husband would find out. But to the world, Bonnie still appeared to be a loving wife and devoted mother. That night, as she got ready for bed, something snapped. Michael was angry again. Neighbors later said they heard shouting coming from the Haim house. Loud, sharp, then silence. A few minutes later, the front door opened. Bonnie left. She got into her brown Nissan and drove off into the dark. No one knew where she was going. Not even she, perhaps. But she never came back. The next morning, her car was found abandoned near the Jacksonville International Airport. Inside, police found her purse, her wallet, her credit cards. Everything was there except Bonnie. To detectives, it looked like she had vanished into thin air. At first, Michael told police that they had argued that night. He said Bonnie had stormed out after saying she needed some air. He claimed she had probably left to clear her head. But something about his story didn't sit right. Why leave your car by an airport if you're just cooling off? Why leave your purse behind? And why not come back for your 3-year-old son? Police questioned Michael for hours. His answers were cold, mechanical. He said he didn't know where Bonnie was. He said maybe she ran away, but detectives could feel it. Something was off. Bonnie's co-workers at the children's clothing company she worked for said she had been distraught the week before she vanished. She told one of them, "If something happens to me, my husband did it." Those words sent chills down their spines when they learned she was gone. Michael, however, seemed strangely calm. He didn't join search parties. He didn't make emotional pleas on TV. He didn't even ask for help. When Bonnie's friends and family called, he brushed them off. "She left me," he said. "She'll be back when she cools down." But she didn't come back. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and Bonnie Haim was nowhere to be found. The Haims' home became the center of suspicion. Police searched it top to bottom, looking for any trace of foul play. But they found nothing obvious, no blood, no signs of struggle. Just a clean, eerily spotless home. Detectives noted that the carpet had recently been replaced. When they asked Michael about it, he shrugged, said it was old, said Bonnie had wanted it changed. Still, something about the timing felt wrong. Investigators brought in cadaver dogs, hoping to catch a scent. But the dogs couldn't pick anything up. If something had happened to Bonnie in that house, Michael had done a good job of hiding it. Meanwhile, little Aaron was staying with relatives. He was only 3 years old, but he remembered things. He told his aunt something strange. "Daddy hurt Mommy." The family froze. They asked him what he meant. He said, "Mommy's gone. Daddy hurt her." At first, they thought maybe he was confused. Just a child repeating what he'd overheard. But over time, his words stayed the same. Consistent, unshaken. "Daddy hurt Mommy." Police brought in child psychologists. They interviewed Aaron carefully, trying not to lead him. Each time, he told the same story. He remembered hearing a loud bang. He remembered Mommy crying. And he remembered Daddy telling him to go back to bed. Then Mommy was gone. The evidence was thin. There was no body, No physical proof. Just a missing woman, a suspicious husband, and a scared little boy. For years, the case went cold. Michael Haim moved on. He sold the house, started over. People whispered, of course. But without evidence, there was no arrest, no charges, no justice. Bonnie's parents refused to give up. They held on to her memory, kept her name in the papers, called detectives every few months, begging for updates. But as time passed, hope began to fade. It seemed Bonnie Haim had been swallowed by the Florida night. Then came a strange twist. Years later, the Haim family home, where Bonnie had last been seen, was sold to new owners. A young couple. They moved in, knowing only that a woman had once gone missing there. It was a quiet neighborhood, the kind where people walked dogs and waved to each other. Nothing remarkable. Until one day, more than 2 decades later, the past came crawling out of the ground. In December 2014, the new homeowners decided to build a backyard pool. A construction crew came in to dig. As the backhoe clawed through the soil, the operator noticed something odd. A round, white object. He thought it was a coconut at first, but as the dirt fell away, he realized it was a skull. Police were called immediately. The property was cordoned off. Detectives arrived, stunned. They had searched this property years ago. They'd walked this very yard, but they'd never dug here. Now, buried under the surface, lay the remains of a woman. Forensic teams worked for days, carefully uncovering the skeletal remains. Within weeks, DNA confirmed what everyone feared. It was Bonnie Haim. The discovery reignited everything. Detectives reopened the case. The old files were pulled from storage. Interviews were revisited. Evidence was re-examined with modern forensic technology. And one name stood out more than ever: Michael Haim. Investigators learned that the remains had been buried just a few feet from the back porch, right where Michael used to park his truck. It was impossible for him not to have known. Even more damning, Bonnie's skull showed signs of a gunshot wound. Someone had shot her, buried her, and moved on with their life. Detectives tracked Michael down. By now, he had a new life in North Carolina. A new name, a new wife. But when the call came, everything collapsed. He was arrested in 2015 for the murder of Bonnie Haim, 22 years after she disappeared. The case that had haunted Jacksonville for decades was finally coming full circle. But the story didn't end there. At the center of it all was the little boy who had once whispered, "Daddy hurt Mommy." Aaron Haim, now grown, had changed his name to Aaron Fraser. He was the one who had purchased the family home years later, the same home where his mother had vanished, the same yard where her remains were found. He hadn't known it then. He had simply wanted to reclaim a piece of his past, to face his childhood demons. But in doing so, he unearthed the truth his father had buried, literally. When the police confirmed the remains were Bonnie's, Aaron said something chilling to reporters. "I found my mom." His voice cracked. He wasn't angry, at least not in that moment. He was broken. For decades, people had doubted him. Before Bonnie Haim became a headline, before her name was whispered in newsrooms and true crime circles, she was just Bonnie. A 23-year-old woman with a gentle smile, a soft voice, and dreams of a simple life. She grew up in Florida. Sunshine, beaches, family barbecues. She wasn't someone who chased danger. She believed in love, in loyalty, in forever. When she met Michael Haim, he seemed like everything she wanted. Quiet, responsible, stable. The kind of man who made promises and, at first, kept them. To everyone around them, they looked like the perfect young couple. They married young, bought a modest house, and started a family. But what no one could see from the outside was that the foundation of that marriage was already cracking. Behind closed doors, something darker was growing. Bonnie's friends would later say she became more distant after the wedding. She stopped meeting up for lunch. She stopped laughing like she used to. And when they asked how things were at home, she'd force a smile and say, "You know how marriage is." But her eyes said something else. Michael had a temper, one that simmered beneath the surface, waiting for the smallest spark. He was jealous, controlling, always watching. He didn't like her talking to male co-workers. didn't like her going anywhere alone. He'd call her at work constantly, checking where she was, who she was with when she'd be home. To the outside world, it looked like a man who cared. To Bonnie, it felt like a cage. Bonnie worked at a children's shoe company in Jacksonville, a job she loved because it gave her a break from the tension at home. Her co-workers became her lifeline. They saw the way she jumped when the phone rang, the way she flinched when Michael's name appeared on the caller ID. And sometimes, after a rough night, she'd arrive with dark circles under her eyes and whisper things she later tried to take back. He got mad again. He threw something. I'm scared, but I can't leave. The fear in her voice wasn't just anxiety. It was exhaustion. Years of trying to please someone who could never be pleased. When their son, Aaron, was born, Bonnie thought things might get better. She hoped fatherhood would soften Michael, give him perspective. And for a little while it seemed to. Michael doted on the baby, showing off pictures at work, taking Aaron to the park. But soon that control crept back in, only worse. Now, Michael's anger wasn't just about Bonnie. It was about how she was raising their son. He criticized everything, what she fed him, how she dressed him, how she comforted him. And when Bonnie tried to push back, he snapped. He didn't hit her in public. He wasn't that careless. But behind closed doors, his rage was unpredictable. Bonnie confided in a close friend that she had started hiding money, just in case. A getaway fund, she called it. It wasn't much, a few dollars here and there from her paycheck. She opened a separate bank account without telling Michael. But one day he found out, and everything changed. Michael was furious. He accused her of planning to leave him. In his mind, it wasn't about the money, it was about control. To him, her independence was betrayal. He demanded she close the account, hand over the card, explain herself. But Bonnie refused. That night, a coworker remembered her showing up to work with tears in her eyes. Her hands were trembling. "He knows," she whispered. "I don't know what he'll do." Friends begged her to leave, but she was trapped. Emotionally, financially, and physically. Every time she thought about leaving, she imagined the consequences. Michael had said things before. "If you ever try to take Aaron, I'll make sure no one ever finds you." She didn't know if he meant it, but his tone told her enough. So she stayed. For Aaron. For peace. For survival. But something inside her was shifting. She started taking small steps, calling apartments, looking for daycare options. She was planning her exit quietly, carefully. She even told her boss she was thinking about leaving Michael soon. She said, "I just need to do it at the right time. I can't let him find out first." Those words would become haunting in hindsight. In the final weeks before she disappeared, Bonnie's co-workers noticed she was more anxious than ever. She stopped eating lunch. She checked the clock constantly. Once, she told a friend, "I think he's watching me." She said she saw his truck parked near her work during lunch breaks. She said he'd ask her questions that proved he knew exactly where she'd been. Michael was always watching, always listening, and Bonnie felt like a prisoner in her own life. A week before she vanished, she met with her supervisor after work. She confided in him, saying, "If something happens to me, Michael did it." He thought she was exaggerating, maybe being emotional, but her tone was deadly serious. She wasn't crying. She wasn't hysterical. She was certain, and that certainty terrified him. At home, the tension boiled over. Michael accused her of cheating. He said she was sneaking around. He called her names, broke things in anger, slammed doors. Aaron, barely 3, would sit quietly in the corner, clutching his toys, pretending he couldn't hear. But he heard everything, and he would remember it for the rest of his life. On the night of January 6, 1993, everything came to a breaking point. Bonnie had spent the evening getting Aaron ready for bed. She read him a story, kissed him on the forehead, and told him she loved him. She went to bed early, or at least tried to, but the fight started again. Neighbors later told police they heard raised voices around 10 p.m. A man shouting, a woman crying, then silence, car starting, and then nothing. The next morning, Michael showed up late to work. He told his boss, "Bonnie left me. He said they argued and she stormed out. He said she must have taken off during the night and left her car near the airport to make it look like she'd flown away. He didn't seem worried. If anything, he seemed relieved. Police were notified that afternoon when Bonnie failed to show up for work. Her boss called her house, no answer. He called her parents. They hadn't heard from her either. Something felt off, so they called the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. When officers arrived, Michael repeated his story. He said Bonnie had probably gone to stay with a friend. But when detectives searched the area, they found her brown Nissan parked near the airport. The keys were missing. Her purse was on the front seat. Her ID and credit cards were still inside. No plane ticket, no luggage, no trace of Bonnie. Detectives quickly grew suspicious. If Bonnie had really left voluntarily, why abandon her car like that? Why leave behind her entire life? They searched her phone records. Nothing. Her bank account. No activity. Her friends. None had heard from her. It was as if she had vanished mid-sentence. And every clue pointed back to one person, the man who didn't seem to care she was gone. As the investigation deepened, detectives asked Michael to take a polygraph test. He agreed confidently, but when the results came back, he failed. Badly. They asked if he'd harmed his wife. He said no. The needle spiked. They asked if he knew where she was. He said no. The needle spiked again. But without a body, without physical evidence, they couldn't arrest him. Not yet. Meanwhile, little Aaron began to speak up. He told his relatives strange things. Things a 3-year-old shouldn't know. Daddy hurt Mommy. Mommy cried. Daddy cleaned it up. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. It was a cold morning in Jacksonville, Florida, the kind of morning where the air felt heavy, like it knew something was coming. Aaron Fraser stood in the backyard of the home where he'd spent his earliest years. The home his mother had once filled with laughter. The same home she had vanished from. Now, decades later, it belonged to him. He bought it after his adoptive parents passed away, hoping to rebuild it, maybe create new memories. Good ones this time. He didn't know it yet, but he wasn't just rebuilding a house. He was about to uncover the truth buried beneath it. Construction crews had been working on the property for days. Aaron was planning to install a pool in the backyard. Something symbolic, something that represented peace. He wanted to drown out the past, quite literally. As the excavator dug into the ground, the sound of metal scraping against earth filled the air. Then it hit something solid. The operator frowned. He thought it was a piece of pipe, maybe debris from an old construction project. But when he reached down and brushed away the dirt, he froze. It wasn't metal. It was bone. At first, everyone went silent. Then Aaron's heart started pounding. He stared at the shape in the dirt, the pale curve of a skull just barely visible beneath the soil. For a second, he couldn't breathe. It felt like time stopped, like the air had been sucked out of the world. He stumbled back, shaking his head, whispering, "No, no, it can't be." But deep down, he knew. Every nightmare he'd ever had, every memory he'd tried to bury, every word he'd said as a child that no one believed, it all rushed back in one overwhelming wave. The police arrived within minutes. They taped off the area, sending forensic teams crawling through the yard. Aaron watched from the porch, numb, as investigators lifted each fragment from the ground: bones, clothing remnants, bits of fabric, and eventually, the unmistakable curve of a skull. One of the officers looked at Aaron and quietly said, "You might want to sit down." But he didn't move. He just stared, his eyes glassy, his fists trembling at his sides. Because he knew, that wasn't just anyone. That was his mother. Back in 1993, when Bonnie Haim vanished, Aaron had told people he'd seen something. He told family members and detectives that Daddy hurt Mommy. He said, Daddy put Mommy in the pool. He was only 3 years old, too young to testify, too young for anyone to believe him. So, they wrote it off as confusion, a traumatized child mixing dreams with memories. But now, decades later, that same child had found the proof. He wasn't confused. He'd been right all along. When detectives confirmed that the remains were human, the entire tone of the investigation changed. They had waited 22 years for a break. Now they had one. Every bone told a story. Every piece of evidence whispered the truth. And for the first time since 1993, the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office reopened the Bonnie Haim case, this time as a homicide. The forensic process took weeks. Specialists from the medical examiner's office carefully cleaned and analyzed each bone fragment. DNA testing confirmed what everyone already suspected. The remains belonged to Bonnie Haim. She had been buried in a shallow grave in the backyard of her own home, right next to the back patio, just a few feet from where little Aaron had once played with his toy cars. He'd run around that yard as a boy, laughing, unaware that his mother was right there, beneath his feet. The thought was unbearable. Aaron said later in an interview, "I feel like she's been calling to me all these years, like she wanted me to find her." The next step was determining how she died. Forensic analysts examined the skull and found a small, circular defect near the back of the head. It was the unmistakable mark of a gunshot wound. Bonnie Haim had been executed. No struggle, no chance to escape. One single shot, cold, calculated, and final. The weapon had never been found. But investigators didn't need it. They had enough. The discovery in that backyard confirmed what so many had believed but could never prove. Michael Haim had killed his wife. When detectives went to question Michael, he wasn't surprised to see them. He'd been living quietly, remarried with a new family, pretending to be a normal man with a normal life. But when they told him what they found, his face went pale. He said nothing. No denial. No outrage. Just silence. It was as if he knew the past had finally caught up to him. Within days, police had enough evidence to arrest him. January 2015, 22 years after Bonnie vanished. Michael Haim was taken into custody and charged with second-degree murder. The community that had long whispered about the Haim case erupted with shock and relief. Some neighbors said, "We always suspected him." Others said, "It's about time." But for Aaron, it wasn't about headlines. It was about justice. For the mother who tucked him into bed every night. For the woman who had whispered that she was scared. For the person who had disappeared while he was too small to fight for her. Now he could. The media swarmed the story. Son finds his missing mother's body in family backyard. It was everywhere: national news, morning shows, true crime specials. But what most people didn't see was the quiet grief that came with it. For every reporter calling it closure, Aaron knew there was no real closure. There was only truth and pain. He said, "I didn't just find her body. I found the moment my life broke in half." As prosecutors built their case, they pieced together the story that had been hiding in plain sight for decades. They found evidence that Michael had tried to sell the family home shortly after Bonnie's disappearance. He had told buyers she ran away. He never mentioned the argument, never mentioned the police questioning. He just wanted to move on. But he couldn't move far enough to escape what he'd buried. Literally. Detectives also re-interviewed former co-workers and friends. One of Bonnie's co-workers recalled how she had told them Michael was abusive, how she had said she was scared to go home. Another remembered her saying, "If something happens to me, it's Michael." Those words became some of the most haunting testimony in the case. The prosecution's timeline became clear. On the night of January 6, 1993, Bonnie and Michael argued after she told him she wanted to leave. Michael snapped. He grabbed a gun, likely one he kept in the house, and shot her. Then, in the dead of night, while their son slept, he carried her body into the backyard. He dug a shallow hole near the back patio and buried her there. Then he cleaned up, put their son to bed, and went to work the next morning like nothing had happened. He told his boss she had run away, and for more than 2 decades that lie worked, until his son brought the truth to light. In 2019, Michael Haim stood trial for the murder of his wife. It was a quiet courtroom, the kind where every sound echoes. Aaron sat just a few feet from the man who'd taken his mother's life. He wasn't that scared little boy anymore. He was a man now, with a steady gaze and a voice that didn't shake when he took the stand. He looked his father in the eye and said, "You did this." It was one of the most powerful moments in the entire trial. The defense tried everything. They said there was no hard proof that Michael pulled the trigger. They said the decades-old evidence was unreliable. They said memories fade, witnesses forget. But the jury didn't buy it. The story made too much sense. The courtroom was silent. Every creak of a chair, every shuffle of paper, sounded like thunder. Reporters filled the back rows. Cameras flashed. But at the center of it all sat Aaron Fraser, the son who'd found his mother's body buried beneath the backyard of his childhood home. And across the room at the defense table sat his father, Michael Haim, the man accused of murdering his wife, the man who had buried her and lied for 22 years. The air was heavy. You could feel the decades of pain between them. This wasn't just a murder trial. It was a confrontation between truth and lies, between the past and justice, between a son and his father. The prosecution opened with a voice as cold as steel. "Ladies and gentlemen of the jury," the attorney began, "this case is about betrayal, the ultimate betrayal. A husband who took the life of his wife and then buried her where their child would play." He paused, letting the words sink in. "And for 22 years, he thought he got away with it." The courtroom was still. Every juror was locked in. Even Michael's attorney shifted uncomfortably. The state laid out its story, piece by piece. Bonnie Haim, 23 years old, a mother, kind, gentle, afraid. She told co-workers her husband was controlling, violent, that she wanted to leave. She made plans, opened a secret bank account, looked for apartments, and then she vanished. The prosecutor showed the jurors old photos. Bonnie's smile, her car, found abandoned near the airport, her purse discovered inside the trunk. They played 911 calls. They replayed witness interviews from 1993. And finally, they revealed the evidence found in 2014, the bones, the clothing, the bullet wound. It was overwhelming. The jurors leaned forward, hanging on every word. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. The prosecutor pointed to the man sitting at the defense table. Michael Haim buried his wife in their backyard. He thought he buried the truth. But he didn't count on one thing, his son. Every eye turned toward Aaron. He didn't flinch. He just stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his hands clasped in front of him. He'd been waiting his whole life for this moment. The defense stood up next. They tried to sow doubt. They said there was no murder weapon, no eyewitness. They said it had been too long, too many years, too many gaps. "You can't convict a man based on speculation," the defense said. "There's no proof he pulled the trigger." But their words sounded thin. Everyone could feel it. The weight of the evidence. The years of silence. The pain in Aaron's voice. No one believed this was just speculation. Then it was time for the key witness. Aaron took the stand. He walked slowly, calm, composed, but you could see the tremor in his hands. He sat down, looked at the jury, and began to speak. "I was 3 when my mom disappeared," he said softly. "I don't remember everything, but I remember being scared." He paused, swallowing hard. "I told people that Daddy hurt Mommy. I said he put her in the pool." The courtroom was silent. Every reporter stopped typing. Aaron continued. "Nobody believed me. They said I was confused. They said kids make things up. But I knew what I saw." He told the jury how he was taken in by relatives, then later adopted. He told them how he grew up with a hole in his life, a missing piece he could never fill, and how, years later, he bought his childhood home, the same one where his mother vanished. "I was rebuilding the house," he said. "I wanted to make peace with it. But instead, I found her." He described the moment the excavator hit something hard, the flash of white bone, the way the ground seemed to breathe. "I knew instantly," he said. "I knew it was her." When he finished, the courtroom was in tears. Even the judge's voice shook slightly as he told Aaron he could step down. But before he did, Aaron turned toward his father. He looked him straight in the eyes. No words, just a long, heavy stare. A lifetime of silence between them. Michael looked away first. The prosecution then called investigators, forensic experts, and medical examiners. They showed photographs of the backyard dig. They displayed the skull with a small circular hole, a gunshot wound. They showed diagrams of how the body had been positioned, the shallow depth of the grave, the proximity to the back patio. It wasn't random. It was deliberate, cold, calculated. The medical examiner testified. This was not an accident. This was homicide. The gunshot wound indicates execution-style placement. Every juror scribbled notes. The evidence was stacking higher and higher, but the defense wasn't done. They brought up the time gap again, 22 years. They argued that anyone could have buried the body, that maybe Bonnie had been killed elsewhere and moved later. But no one bought it. Who else had access to the yard? Who else had motive? Only one person, her husband. When it came time for the defense to call Michael to the stand, there was a pause. Everyone wondered if he'd finally speak. Would he tell his side? Would he confess? But he didn't. His lawyer whispered something in his ear. Michael shook his head. He wouldn't testify. He stayed silent, the same silence he'd maintained since 1993. During closing arguments, the prosecutor's voice filled the room. He thought time would erase the truth, but it didn't. Truth doesn't disappear. It waits. And when the ground gave up its secret, it gave Bonnie Haim her voice back. The jurors sat in complete stillness. This is not about revenge, the prosecutor continued. It's about justice. Justice for a young mother who never got to watch her son grow up. Justice for a woman who deserved better than to be buried like garbage. Then he pointed once more at Michael. He buried her. He lied for decades. And now, it's time to hold him accountable. The defense's closing was short. You can't convict a man on emotion, the lawyer said. You must have proof. Real proof. But the jurors already knew what proof looked like. It looked like bones in the dirt. It looked like a bullet hole in a skull. It looked like a son who never gave up. The jury deliberated for 2.5 hours. Aaron sat outside the courtroom, his hands trembling. He said later that those hours felt like years. Then, finally, the doors opened. The jurors filed back in. The foreman stood. The judge asked, "Have you reached a verdict?" The foreman nodded. "Yes, Your Honor." Aaron's heart pounded in his chest. He glanced at Michael. His father looked down at the table, expressionless. "We, the jury, find the defendant, Michael Haim, guilty of second-degree murder." The room erupted. Reporters scrambled for photos. Some people gasped. Others cried. Aaron sat still. He closed his eyes. Tears streamed down his face. But he didn't smile. He just whispered, "Mom, we did it." The judge sentenced Michael Haim to life in prison. He showed no emotion as deputies placed cuffs around his wrists. But as they led him away, he turned for one last look. Not at the cameras, not at the judge, but at his son. Aaron didn't look back. He just stared straight ahead, tears drying on his face, the weight of 22 years finally lifting from his shoulders. Outside the courthouse, reporters surrounded Aaron, microphones in his face, cameras flashing. "How does it feel?" one asked. He paused. "It feels like I finally kept my promise to her." He didn't elaborate. He didn't have to. The whole world already knew what he meant. That night, Jacksonville felt different. The world knew her name now, Bonnie Haim. For 22 years, she had been a whisper in Florida's true crime history. A missing woman, a haunting mystery, a question mark in the heart of Jacksonville. But now, she was a story of truth finally unearthed. Her bones had spoken, her son had listened, and her killer, her husband, was behind bars for life. Yet for Aaron Fraser, the man who had uncovered the secret buried beneath the backyard of his childhood home, the end of the trial wasn't the end of the story. It was just the beginning of something else, something heavier, something quieter. The news cameras eventually left. The courthouse emptied. The headlines faded. But the silence stayed. Aaron went back to his house, the one where he'd found his mother's remains. He stood in the yard again, staring at the patch of earth that had changed everything. He said later, "I stood there for hours. I didn't move. I just kept thinking. This is where my life ended and began. He could still see the flash of white when the excavator dug in. He could still smell the soil, feel the air go cold. It was like the ground itself had exhaled the truth. Neighbors stopped by sometimes, quietly, almost shyly. They didn't know what to say. One woman, tears in her eyes, said softly, "We all wondered what happened to her. I just wish she could have seen how strong you turned out." Aaron smiled, but it was the kind of smile that hides more than it shows. He was grateful, but he was tired, the kind of tired that comes from carrying a ghost your entire life. He started to rebuild the home again, this time not for closure, but for peace. He renovated the kitchen where Bonnie used to cook, repainted the living room, opened the blinds that had been closed for years. He planted flowers in the backyard, her backyard. Daisies. They were her favorite. He said he wanted her to finally have something beautiful growing above her. Something that wasn't pain. Meanwhile, Michael Haim sat in a state prison just north of Jacksonville. Inmate #M05497. He didn't talk much. He didn't give interviews. He refused to admit guilt. When reporters reached out, he declined every request. One guard said, "He keeps to himself. Doesn't talk about her. Doesn't talk about the son either." As if silence could still save him. But outside those walls, the world was still talking. The case became a symbol, a reminder of how justice doesn't fade with time. News programs replayed the courtroom scenes. True crime shows dissected every moment. Podcasts dove into the eerie details. The missing wife, the toddler's memory, the backyard discovery. People everywhere were fascinated. How could a husband bury his wife where his child played? How could a little boy remember what no one believed? The story didn't just haunt Florida, it haunted America. Because it wasn't just about murder. It was about betrayal. It was about silence. It was about a voice that refused to die. Aaron started getting letters from strangers all over the country. Some sent prayers. Some sent apologies for not believing him when he was little. Some just wrote, "You gave me hope," he said in one interview. "For the first time, I realized my mom's story wasn't just hers. It belonged to everyone who's ever been ignored. Everyone who's ever been silenced." He paused, looking down. "I was that little boy, and I learned that sometimes you have to dig for the truth." Years passed, but Aaron never stopped visiting her grave. He made sure she was buried properly this time, in a quiet cemetery surrounded by trees. A white stone marker. Simple. Elegant. It read, "Bonnie L. Haim, beloved mother. Never forgotten." He'd stand there for hours sometimes, talking softly. He'd tell her about his life, his work, the days that felt heavy. And sometimes, when the wind moved just right through the trees, he said it almost felt like she was answering back. He often thought about how different his life might have been. What if someone had believed him when he was 3? He remembered saying, "Daddy hurt Mommy. Daddy put her in the pool." But adults dismissed it. They said he was too young to understand. If only they had listened. Maybe she would have been found sooner. Maybe justice would have come faster. Maybe she wouldn't have spent 22 years buried in the backyard of her own home. Still, he refused to live in bitterness. He said, "Holding on to anger just keeps you stuck in the grave with them. I don't want that for her. Or for me." Instead, he spoke about healing. He began working with advocacy groups for victims of domestic abuse. He told his mother's story, not to relive it, but to warn others. He told them to listen to the signs, to believe their instincts, and to never, ever ignore a child who says something doesn't feel right. Bonnie's story became more than a crime. It became a lesson. Her coworkers remembered how she tried to leave, how she opened a secret bank account, how she planned to escape. But fear kept her there, and fear cost her everything. Aaron said, if someone had helped her back then, if she had felt safe enough to go, she might still be alive. That truth weighed on him more than anything, because he didn't just lose a mother. He lost what his life could have been. In 2021, a small memorial was held in Jacksonville. Survivors of domestic violence gathered. Candles flickered in the dark, and Aaron spoke at the podium. His voice cracked, but his words were steady. When I found her, I thought I was breaking, but really I was becoming whole. I was giving her what she'd been denied, peace. He looked at the crowd. Justice doesn't erase pain, but it gives it purpose. The audience stood in silence. Some cried. Some just nodded because they knew exactly what he meant. Reporters asked him if he forgave his father. He paused for a long time before answering. Forgiveness isn't for him. It's for me. I won't let him live rent-free in my soul. He looked down for a moment, then back up at the cameras. I forgive him, but I'll never forget what he did. It wasn't anger. It was clarity. And it was the kind of strength only someone who's lived through hell can speak with. Years after the trial, Aaron sold the house. He said it was time to move on. He'd done what he came there to do. He'd dug up the truth. He'd faced the past. But before he handed over the keys, he stood in the backyard one last time. The sun was setting. The sky painted orange and gold. He touched the soil where she'd been buried. "You can rest now, Mom," he whispered. "We're okay." He turned and walked away, not with sorrow, but with peace, because he knew the ground no longer hid a secret. It held a story, her story. The Bonnie Haim case remains one of Florida's most haunting tragedies. A young mother's disappearance, a father's lies, a son's discovery that changed everything. And though decades passed before the truth surfaced, the lesson still echoes. Time doesn't bury truth, it preserves it. Every grain of dirt, every whisper of memory, waits. And one day, when someone dares to dig deep enough, it speaks. Today, when people visit Jacksonville, they sometimes drive past that quiet neighborhood. Most wouldn't guess that beneath one of those backyards, a story waited for more than 2 decades to be told. But locals know. They know the legend of the mother who vanished after a drive. The woman whose bones were found by her son. The case that proved, even when the world forgets, truth remembers. Aaron said it best in one of his last interviews. People call it a tragedy. For more chilling true crime stories, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.